Welcome back to Keep It Good. I'm your host, Emily.
And I'm your host, Carly. Today is our season finale, and we have a really special guest with us today who literally encompasses every episode that we have touched on. So, we'd love to introduce you to motocross legend, multinational champion, Hall of Famer, Doug Henry. Hey, Doug.
Hello.
We're so happy to have you.
No kidding. Thank you so much. This is a real treat to have you with us today.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to join you.
So, let's start from the beginning. How did you get involved in motocross racing?
It's kind of strange. I'm not exactly sure why I wanted a mini bike. Back in the day, there was a Sears catalog, and sometimes we would circle stuff to try to get for Christmas.
Yes.
And that mini bike just really stood out to me. So I'm not sure. I ended up getting one around 5 years old for my birthday or just prior to my birthday. And I just rode the wheels off that mini bike. It was so much fun for me to ride. And I remember sitting there, just in the barn. My dad worked for Sikorsky, so he was like, it's kind of like, you could set your clock by his schedule, his daily schedule. He would get home around 3:20, so I would get on my mini bike and I would just sit on it and just wait for him to get home because I couldn't ride till he got home. And as soon as I'd see him pull down the driveway, I'd start it up and I just do laps around the house till I ran out of gas pretty much, but,
Oh my
I
gosh.
loved riding. It was just so much fun. I don't know, I guess it was like 2 wheels. My cousin, they had go-karts, and they were
Okay.
fun to ride too, but the mini bike just seemed to I just really enjoyed it, and, there were a couple other kids in the neighborhood that had mini bikes and stuff, and I loved kinda, like, learning the little bits and pieces about riding, like hitting little jumps and doing little wheelies and just the small stuff, and it just kinda kept growing, growing and growing from there. I got one mini bike, then I got another mini bike, then I got, like, a real dirt bike that had a clutch and gears and stuff. It was an older bike, but it was something to learn on. I rode that a bunch, and my parents rode very little. Like, my mother and father, they had street bikes for a very short period of time. They had, Honda CB350s, and
Okay.
my dad was more of a street rider a little bit. He would take the bike to work every once in a while. My aunt rode,
Wow.
Wow.
and, yeah,
I
my
didn't know that.
grandfather, he was a lifetime member of the AMA racing organization. He was an avid rider. I didn't really get to meet him. I think he had passed when I was about 4 years old, but it was kind of in the family a little bit,
Yeah.
and so between the family and the neighborhood, I just kinda continued with it because I met a lot of friends through riding, and as I got a little bit older, I just remember guys that had asked my father if they could cut through my property to get to the logging trails. Our property bordered a sawmill in Shelton. I grew up in Shelton. And so, like, there was these logging trails that led to power lines that went to railroad tracks that went to sand pits and stuff. So I would see these guys. There was like 3 or 4 of them that just happened to got brand new bikes, PE 350s, I think they were, and they had new riding gear, and I just remember splitting firewood down by the pond, and they all came and cut through the property while I was working, and I was like, "Man, I'd love to go ride with these guys one of these days," just to see where they're going because I had never been to the dam, they called it. It was a sand pit in Oxford that a lot of the riders went to. So when I became a teenager, I would talk to them and, kinda got to know them a little bit, and I ended up going to the track, the dam. I guess it wasn't a track, it was a sand pit, and rode with them there, and, it was really the first time I saw bikes with numbers on them and didn't really know much about amateur racing. I had a friend at school that would bring in a magazine and we'd talk about it, and it was kind of like around the same time when, in middle school when I was hanging out with my friend in school that he was just showing me the magazines, and he actually did some racing in New York. So I went and watched my dad and I actually went to New York. I think it was Ace. I don't, it was on the eastern side of New York, just over the Newburgh Bridge. But it was a track, and I went and saw him ride. And going through school and being a teen and a boy that wasn't really too fond of school, my dad sort of made a deal with me that if I got good grades in school, he would help me pay for a dirt bike. He would pay for half the bike if I did well, and when I sold it, he would get half the money back. So I had a newer bike, and I went down to Libby's Yamaha in New Haven, And on the counter, when we were either getting parts or getting the bike, they had a racing schedule. So I looked at it and I asked the people at the dealership, what this was about, and they said, "Yeah, this is racing, and you could start out racing as a beginner, and then you work through the ranks and beginner, amateur, and expert." So I didn't know where I was going with it, but my dad and I decided to go up to Southwick, Massachusetts, and we ended up watching a race there again and just kind of picking out, my dad and I were kind of guessing about where I would finish. This was like 1988, 1984, the end of 1984. And, we're like, I don't know, you'd probably finish somewhere in the middle of the pack, maybe, or something like that. So I think it was probably 2 or 3 weeks later, they had another Southwick race. So I signed up for the NESC organization, New England Sports Committee, and did my first race. And it was at Southwick. I was on I think it was a 1984 Yamaha YZ80. And I ended up, I think I was running second, and I ended
Mhm.
up over jumping this one jump, and I landed in a hole, and I hurt my ankle really bad, and I wasn't able to finish. So we didn't know where I had finished. I was in the 80cc class, and they would combine the beginners, the amateurs, and the experts because they didn't have a full gate. So they would just combine everybody. So when we finished the first race, they didn't have the results yet, and we didn't know where we finished because it was kind of hard to tell which riders were experts. I mean, the numbers were background. They had different backgrounds for what class you were in. The beginner was a black background with white numbers. Amateur was yellow background with black numbers, and the expert was white background with black numbers. So it was kind of hard to kind of tell unless you're really paying attention to where you finished. So the second race, I didn't end up racing, but in the first race, I ended up getting second place in my beginner class. So we're like, oh, that was pretty good. So ended up just kind of. I did a couple races on the 80 that year, just at Southwick, and then the next year I jumped up to the 125 class and started racing kind of like full time. We ended up committing to racing the whole schedule and running the 125 class. And again, the challenges I think of racing, I think with me with the racing, I've always kind of turned it up a little bit more than I should have at times, and I got hurt at a lot of races. And it started out, like I said, my first race, I hurt my ankle, and then when I just jumped into the 125 novice class, I don't know if it's the first or second race, me and a guy kind of collided in the air off a jump, and I ended up breaking my arm. So I was just in high school because I remember I went to Emmett O'Brien in Ansonia, and I remember in shop class, and they have like a tool crib. It's kind of where you sign the tools out to the mechanics, students, but
Yeah.
we're all mechanics. So we'd sign the tools out. And since I was hurt, I couldn't do some of the stuff. So I was in the tool crib, running the tool crib. And I just remember like taking tools and just kind of like I was getting itchy and like my it was getting itchy and stuff. And I ended up just like kind of breaking it apart. And I ended up like kind of cutting the top part off at the elbow so I could move my arm around a little bit and get a little itching in there. And then, shortly after that, it was riding with the cast on and then cutting the cast off. And I think for the first like 5 casts that I got throughout my racing and riding career, I never went to the doctor to cut them off.
Oh
They
my
were
god.
gone before I went to that
You'd
that
show up.
final appointment. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So, but racing was fun, and like I said, I think my dad saw that it kind of kept me a little bit focused, a little bit more disciplined, and I think they were both nervous about the racing because of how dangerous the sport is.
Yeah.
But I think there's just, sometimes the danger factor, you kind of got to overlook that when you see how much love or passion somebody has for something, even though it is dangerous. So I just continue with it. And my mom would come to some of the races, and, my dad was there pretty much all the time till I kind of turned pro. And then my dad sort of like, stepped away because his job was kind of being fulfilled by mechanics and crew members and stuff. So he sort of backed off, but they'd still come to the races every once in a while. But it was I think it was pretty nerve wracking for my dad and my mom. Unfortunately, she had cancer and she had passed at 53. So I think just as I started my pro career, my mom didn't really get to see much of that. I think she got to see one of my pro races at Giant Stadium in New Jersey, but she had passed, and I think just having her there for that amount of time was important for me, because I think she supported the racing in a way that my dad was, although he was supportive and helped out a lot, he, he wanted me to
Uh-huh.
get a job at McDonald's all the time. He's like, you got to get to work. You can't just ride dirt bikes. Because once you get to an expert level, you do start to make like a little bit of money. The purse at the races, instead of getting trophies, you'd get like a little bit of money.
Okay.
So you could make a little bit of money. And the beginning part of my pro career was just kind of, just sort of survival, like I just needed to qualify to just be able to, like, there was one race I remember being in Ohio in probably 1990 or something. I was there, and it was like, I got to qualify because I don't have enough money to get home. Like I could have borrowed money. That wouldn't have been an issue, but it was kind of like I need to qualify just to get that $200 or whatever it was, just to be able to get back to
Mhm.
Florida to get training and doing some more riding. So it was definitely a low budget operation.
Now, there was obviously a point in time where you started to be sponsored, right?
Yeah, and that's
Okay,
the
once
thing.
you become pro.
It's yes, and it starts out slow. Like my first sponsorship was a suspension company out of Connecticut, C Cycle Suspension. He offered to do my suspension for nothing, and so that was like a big help. And then you'll start to get maybe a goggle sponsor or a equipment sponsor or a bike part sponsor, and so those little sponsors kind of came as I turned expert and just into my pro career. Just there was a motorcycle dealership out of Glastonbury, New England Cycle, and they worked a deal out with Yamaha where I got two bikes and like $5,000 in parts, which was great for me because I was pretty hard on bikes and going through parts like crazy. So that really helped me out because now I could just focus on the money that I had was really just for travel and food and not so much getting the bike together. So that was able to save a lot of money and get me to the pro races and get noticed to get even more sponsors. So after kind of the struggle years of kind of living out of a van, because I just went to Florida, and I remember one year, like in high school and Christmas, during the Christmas vacation, me and my friends just drove down there and spent the whole Christmas vacation down there riding and just kind of staying in the van and living in a campground. And so when I graduated from high school, I was working with a friend who was also a rider, and he hung sheetrock. So I worked for him, sheetrocking homes for a while. And it was great having a boss that was also a rider because he kind of knew that, it was nice to get Friday off to be able to travel to get to the races. And, it was kind of like, I'd love to ride today. It's a beautiful day. If we get this amount of work done, can I take off early to go ride? So it was great having him as a boss. And then from there, I went to work for UPS and also a beach rake combing company. And we built these beach rakes that would clean the beaches towed behind a tractor. And for a while, I worked both jobs. I kind of did loaded the trucks and UPS at night, and I just drive to the beach combing company, and I'd just sleep in the car. And then a friend of mine would wake me up, and I'd go do that job. And I was kind of just deciding which job I wanted to do. And I decided to stick with the beachcombing company. And again, knowing the schedule where I kind of wanted to leave on Friday to get to some of the races on the East Coast, where I was driving to Maryland, Pennsylvania, Michigan, like just races where I kind of needed that extra day to get out to the track. So I don't know. The results kind of got me some sponsorship. And then once you get some good results and good sponsors, it helps with your racing, and it just kind of takes some of the weight off your shoulders as being a privateer. And my first sort of big sponsorship would be DGY. It was a company out of Downers Grove, Illinois, and they were kind of early on, and that's kind of how they were able to justify having a race team. And when I first raced with them, they paid for a mechanic, so that was another big plus for me. Where getting the bikes and the parts for free, but still having to work on them, then having a mechanic that could work on the bike, that left me more room for training. So I was able to train and get stronger that way. Then the next year I got even a little bit of a salary, which was awesome. I think it was like 18,000 for my first year, and some of that was for travel, but still, for me to just get a little bit of money was awesome, and not knowing again, like where it was going to go from there. But from there, going from a privateer support team where it wasn't a full factory race team, it was just a B level kind of race team.
Mhm.
Um, Going from there, I was noticed by Honda and Kawasaki. And those were, championship winning teams, national winning teams. And just being approached by both of them was, I was blown away. And there was one sponsor that was, there was a guy, Bevo Forte. He was a goggle sponsor of mine, and just a really down to earth guy. And he was in the industry way, for a long time. And so I went to him for advice and asking him like what he thought I should do. And one of the things, I don't know if he mentioned it or I just thought of it, but there was a rider who rode for both teams, rode for both Kawasaki and Honda. And so I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, I got, kind of an offer from both of the manufacturers. And I just wanted to know your opinion on the racing and what you thought." And he basically said, "If you wanna win championships, go with Honda." So, that was kinda what sold it, and the Honda deal was less money than the Kawasaki deal, but the championship and bonus money was really good, and to put that kind of time and effort and, I guess, sacrifice the body parts that, get abused during racing. I think, like, the financial side of it was a part of a drive for me, the love of racing, and then also thinking about being able to support myself through racing. It was a big incentive, so I just thought to myself, "Man, if I could just do really good for a couple of years, like, I can probably pay for a home and get a good start on life," just all things fall into place, stars aligning. But, I ended up winning 2 championships my first year with Honda, and then I backed up, on the championship that I won in the outdoor season, in 1994. So I had gotten, a Eastern Supercross title and then 2 national championships, my first 2 years with Honda. And it was tough to back that year up. Going from the first year, kinda just you're the underdog. I was a little bit older than most of my competition because I had gotten into it a little bit later, and just not knowing how long the factories would be interested in me because I was kind of on that age limit of being too old to race in the 125 or even the 250 class. So winning that championship that first year and then the 2 championships is like, wow, now where? And I think the pressure that I put on myself to be able to defend my title was overwhelming. And along with, I learned that it was along with my diet, but I was very, very stressed out. And I ended up just burning my body out, and I was dehydrated a lot. Like I couldn't
Mm.
keep fluids in, and not realizing, like growing up in life for me, I think hearing my mom a little bit about salt. Bill, my father, don't put too much salt on, don't use salt. Like salt.
Yeah.
So sodium was like, I think like in the back of my mind, it was a thing to kind of stay away from in a way, but not realizing that how much sodium was needed for how much the sweat and the perspiration I was losing during riding and training and racing. So I did see a doctor in maybe halfway through 1994 during that racing season, along with starting yoga. I believe that yoga for me helped so much with my anxiety and stress of competition and racing and I think the combination of calming my nerves and getting the right amount of electrolytes in my system, gave me the strength to kind of finish off the championship with another title. And then going from there, it was like, man, I learned a lot. I really learned a lot, defending my title in 1994. And I was excited. Well, so now it was time for me to move up to the premier class, and Honda wanted to get me, on the team, and things were going well. And Supercross, there's motocross and Supercross, and motocross is really where I learned to ride, where I grew up riding. And motocross is more outdoors. It's out in the hills. It's in, big sand areas and fast straightaways, rough tracks, changing conditions, weather. And Supercross was man-made. It's where they take all the dirt and they come to a stadium and they build a track specifically just for the race, and then they remove it all the following day. And so I wasn't very good at riding the Supercross because I didn't have that type of track to ride on and practice on and stuff. So my Supercross learning curve was pretty brutal. If my DUI days of learning Supercross, I had, taken a lot of spills and missed a lot of laps because I was sleeping on the track.
My God.
So, but moving into 250 class, the premier class, like I struggled a little bit in the beginning, but I was kind of getting it. And I was winning heat races and didn't quite get a win. Oh, actually, I did get a win that year. I forgot. I'm sorry, 1995. But kind of like it was one of those things where it was a muddy race, and so people didn't really count it so much. Like a little asterisk. Oh, it was a muddy race. That's why he won. But then I won 2 championships after that. And then with the Supercross, it was a muddy one. But then I ended up winning like 7 or 10. I don't know how many races I ended up winning in the premier class, but it was a muddy one in 1995. So my Supercross career was a little bit rougher than my motocross career until 1995. I was racing the outdoor season. I had just won my first premier motocross race on the Honda in Mount Morris, and I was doing well. I was like in the points. I was kind of in the points chase for the title, and I went to Budds Creek, Maryland, and I was known as a rider that would sort of kind of come on a little bit stronger towards the end of the race. Like my fitness was pretty good, and I was kinda chasing a guy. I was in 2nd place, and, there was a guy behind me, but I wasn't so worried about the guy behind me. I knew the guy in 1st place was that I could make a charge at him, and I made a little mistake in this one section, and I tried to make up for the mistake and drove down into the section that I had gone faster than I did all weekend, and um, I ended up making a big mistake and my feet came off. Like I sort of like was falling off the back of the bike. And when I was falling off the back of the bike, I was kind of giving it more throttle than I could. I couldn't really reach my brake pedal, uh, or the front brake lever or the rear brake pedal. So I ended up just jumping this jump way further than anybody had or anybody wanted to ever, and I landed and I broke my back. I didn't know it at the time. Like I just knew it was just a lot of pain, and something was wrong, and I wasn't able to finish. But you know, one of those things where I've crashed so many times in my life, and it's like you wiggle your fingers, you wiggle your toes, and you know, okay, I can do that. I'm good. Like I can recover
Mhm.
from this, which I did. And there was some other accidents where I was riding a developmental bike, a 4-stroke, and the bike had an issue, and the bike stalled in midair, and with inertia, like there's ways to control a bike with inertia, and one of the ways is if your front end of the front of the bike is too high, with the rear wheel spinning as fast as it is, if you hit the rear brake and stop the rear tire, it actually forces the front of the bike down. And same thing vice versa. If the front of the tire is low and you give it a handful of throttle, a lot of throttle, it will bring the front end of the motorcycle up. So I went over this big jump and the motorcycle just locked up in the air. So it forced the front end down, and I ended up landing so hard that I broke both my arms on the landing of the jump. So that was kind of a setback in 1997. And so the 1995 break, break in the back,
Suck.
coming back to 1996, and I felt pretty good, pretty strong. And
Well, the 1995, they actually named that hill after you, correct?
yes, yes, it's still Henry Hill.
Henry Hill.
That's
Yes, yes.
incredible.
I was there
Smokes.
last year for the first time in a lot of years, just and the owner of the track and I were discussing the incident, and it was pretty funny because things kind of slow down at times, and And I remember jumping over the speaker wire that was on the track, and he's like, "There's no way you went over that speaker wire." I said, "Yeah, I remember looking down and seeing the speaker wire, like I did." And, it took him a while to believe me that that was the case because, like, they ended up, like, getting rid of the speaker wire down the road, but it was like, just the amount of height that I had over this, was just a big mistake, but, yeah, so it's still there, and I love the track, that's the thing, it just had some couple of bad
How many injuries did you go through? Like, how many bones have you broken throughout your pro
Yeah,
career?
I really don't know. I've broken both arms twice, leg, ankle, elbow, shoulder blade, back 3 times.
Jeez.
Um, I don't know, fingers.
Doug, it's crazy.
Yeah, just a little
Doug.
beat up. Yeah, yeah, but I felt like I was always a little bit behind the 8 ball when it came to, my competition. Like, I always felt like I was the underdog, and so I pushed it a little harder and a little bit too hard at times. But I wouldn't be who I am and where I am if I didn't do those things. Like, I wish I
Right.
could have smoothed out and learned how to ride the bike a little bit better and learned how to ride smoother and smarter, but, I just sort of, went faster and trained harder. Like, that was kind of my
Your motto?
yeah, my formula for success.
Wow.
Um
Well, let's talk about March 7th, 2007. That was a pivotal moment in your life.
Yes, I was racing motocross, and I'm just gonna go back real quick just because I broke my back at Budds Creek, and then 2 years later, I broke both arms at Budds Creek, and then a year after that, I won the national championship. So,
Wow.
I had bad luck, but, and some setbacks, but I ended up winning the national championship in 1998, and, kinda like a little bit about what we're saying about all the injuries and the amount of abuse that your body takes. I wanted to kind of get out of the sport and try, just try to retire from the sport. And I ended up buying an old farm in Torrington, and I got a couple of cows, and I got pigs, and I got some sheep and goats. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to kind of live off the land and just kind of settle down. But it didn't take too long before I realized that this wasn't for me. Like, having the animals around was great. It was a lot of fun. I love animals, but when it came time to butcher and take them from living to put them on the table, that's where I struggled. So, and I missed racing. I missed the competitive side of things. And at that time, there was a type of racing that just kind of came out. It was an old style racing that was around, and it was big in Europe, and they brought it to the US, and it was called supermoto racing. And what that is you take a dirt bike and you put street bike wheels on it, and you race on the asphalt and you race on the dirt. It was a combination. So years ago, it was on ABC Wild World of Sports, and that was the one day that I could kind of get my dad to like Dad, I want to watch this race. So I'll get up early, whatever I have to do, because motorcycle racing, motocross racing really wasn't on TV back then. So watching this race, it was a big thing for me in racing. And then that type of racing came to a series. So the AMA, American Motorcyclist Association, they started a racing series, a supermoto racing series, and I was like, "Oh, that looks like fun," because it's some of the street, which I had an interest in, some of street racing, and then some motocross. So, I got into that and I loved it, and it was a lot of fun, and the X Games ended up hosting a couple events, and I raced there. I won a gold medal, for supermoto racing in X Games in, I think, 2005, and continued to race 2005, 2006. And then, yes, March of 2007, down in Florida, the bike week, Daytona, we were doing a supermoto race for that. And I was in practice. I think it was the day before the race. We had like an open practice, and I raced there like the week before. There was a race in Ocala I did, and went to this race, and it was at a speedway, so it was a little bit faster than because some of the races that we did with Supermoto were on go-kart tracks, and other ones were on, NASCAR tracks, this was a bigger track, a faster track, which I loved because I did some training up in Loudon, New Hampshire, which is also a NASCAR track. So that speed, I really enjoyed the speed. And the first corner was a super fast corner, and we were going out for practice. And with street tires, a lot of people will recognize or notice that some of the cars that NASCAR or whatever type of racing you'll see the cars kind of weave back and forth, and that a lot of that is to sometimes remove debris off the tire, but also put heat in the tire to get traction. So there was a rider in front of me, and he ended up falling, and he kind of slid up, kind of pretty far. And I just kind of thought to myself, oh, that's cold tires. Maybe he didn't have his tires weren't warm enough, and just kind of pushed it a little too hard too early. So by the time I came around for my second lap, usually, your tires usually warm, a lap or so, especially when you have tire warmers on, your tires are pretty ready to go by the second lap. So I came into the corner really fast, and I just lost the front end, meaning the front tire just slid out from under me, and I kinda got trapped a little bit between the bike, and I was kinda sliding with the bike, and we were sorta spinning, and I ended up, sliding up and hitting the wall, and, kinda got pinched between the bike and the wall. And again, like what I said before about the wiggle in the fingers, the wiggle in the toes, it was like, the fingers were working, but the toes weren't. And I just thought to myself, you think about this happening several times. I don't know. I mean, I always thought about it. My uncle was in a wheelchair, and he lived with us for a while. So the thought of racing and taking those risks and being in a chair was always there. But it's something that you never really want to happen to you. But it was just, I knew right then and there that this was different from every other injury that I've had. And this is going to be a tough one. And, I was pretty emotional on the track, and, kind of thought about it and processed it, and knew it was going to be different, and went to the hospital and find out that's kind of what the thing I had it wasn't a severed spinal cord injury, but they say it was like, it's kind of like a garden hose where it was kinked. So it's like, you take a garden hose and you kink it, and now not all of the nerve, the messages are getting through. So it's not that it was severed, but I was considered a T12 complete spinal cord injury, which kind of, which everybody's different. Everybody that has, they could have the same diagnosis, but different prognosis. I think if that's the right way of
Mm.
saying it, but everybody's kind of different. So um, I didn't know where I was gonna, what was gonna happen from there. Just being in the hospital, not knowing, what's gonna happen. And it's weird. I've overcome so many injuries, and it's like this one I want to do as well. And so people are kind of advising me of how I'm gonna live my life in the wheelchair. And it's like I'm not really paying attention. I'm more thinking about walking than living my life in a wheelchair. So I kind of lived out that dream of being able to walk again, and being able to do the things that I was going to do again. And I realized that, I worked really, really hard to get to walking again. And I realized, after about a year and a half, I realized, like, walking, it's very, very helpful, but it's not everything. And so right about then, I decided that, I'm not going to really focus so much on walking anymore. I'm going to get back to the life that I had, just with a little bit of adaptations, and just trying to adjust to the new way of living. And I got back to pretty much everything that I've been able to do. I mean, I would love to go for a run if that ever comes a day. If you see the movie Forrest Gump, he was running from a different kind of pain, but I think I would run across the country if I could.
Mhm.
Wow.
So, yeah, so
Yeah.
there's little things that that are missed, but I'm thankful that I'm able to do so much, that as much as I can do now, that I never thought I'd be able to ride as much, and run my bulldozer and my excavator, my skid steer, and ride bicycles and do things at the time, that my kids were 8 and 10, and I know it's so hard on them, but it was like I just felt like I was able to spend a little bit more time with them and sitting down all the time. You're like, I feel like now it's like I can really resonate with kids. We're at the same height, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I love, like a lot of kids will ask me like what happened or what this, and a lot of times the parents will be like, oh, and it's like, no, I want to talk to them. I want them to know like what happened and it's okay. It's not a big deal. I do so many things just because I'm in a chair. It's like, it's not as bad as it may seem. I guess you could look at it, you could definitely look at things and see the negative side of things. And you could look at situations and see the positive side of things. And I'm thankful for whatever gene I have that, that I've been able to pull myself out of some deep holes or dark places and see that, you don't have to live in those places. You can, change what you got to do. I mean, people that are around me now know how much sweeping drives me insane because it's like such an easy thing for an able-bodied person to do, but for me, it's a struggle and I get very frustrated sweeping. But I don't have to sweep. I'll go do something else today. It's one of those things that I think in the early part of my injury that there was little challenges that I really had to overcome. And like I said, sweeping is like such a small thing, but it was just something that was an issue for me. And then helping other people and people helping me, it was like um, there's few things that I could do well, and driving, that was something that I loved to do and I could help. So when people needed rides here and there or going places, it's like I can help, like I finally feel like I can help people. But being able to help people and accept help and asking for help was a big challenge, I think, for the first 10 years of being in a chair. So I felt like at a 10-year mark, I think everybody has their own uh, place where they sort of take acceptance into the situation that they're in. And for me, it was kind of like the 10-year mark. I think I'm at like 18 years now or something like that. But just the adaptations and the struggles aren't so much seen that people living with disabilities. It's like the struggles that you may see aren't necessarily the struggles that they have. Like opening a door, it's so nice. Like it really is nice. I have the nicest people that will open the door for me, and I really appreciate it. And like opening a door is okay for me, but it really is nice when somebody does that. And I feel like in the beginning I'd feel like they're looking at me as weak. It's like, you don't have to do that for me. I can do it. Like I'm not weak. But now I realize like that reciprocation of helping others, how important it is. I know when somebody opens the door for me, it's doing something for them as well. That
Right.
learning to let go of that pride, I guess you'd say, and allowing people to help, and for me to be able to help others is that I'd say that was like a big adjustment for me to get used to.
Yeah. So faith has become a really big part of your life. Did you have a lot of faith before the accident, or is that a new kind of journey since going through that?
Definitely a new journey, but I realized it was there the whole time, and that's what's cool. That's what's amazing to me about it. Like, I guess what sort of set me on the path was you wondering why there's the suffering and the pain. Like, why is there suffering and pain in this world? And that's sort of what set that was probably about 5 years ago, I'm guessing somewhere around there. That was sort of what set me off. That was the spark that set me in the direction of trying to understand the more of life, whatever it is, the deeper sense of living. And that was kind of the catalyst that sent me on that direction. A friend of mine said that becoming aware of God, and I think like the awareness, I became aware of a presence that has been with me and that's with me and that will always be with me, forever. And it was just a moment where I just saw so much of God in my life. And it just like all of these things just sort of came together. He was here, he was there, he was here, he was there, he was there. I dismissed him here, I dismissed him there. Like all of these things just kind of connected and blew up in my head and my heart. And one of the things was my uncle who was in the wheelchair. He became a Jehovah's Witness, and he lived with us for a while, and I was young. I was maybe 8, 10. I'm not exactly sure how old I was. He would tell the stories of the gospel to me quite often because, he was home. My dad was working, my mom was working, and, he was someone to hang out with and talk to and everything, and I didn't understand, anything, but I'm sure that some of the messages that they kind of resonated with me and they stuck with me. And I'd say built a kind of character that allows me to maybe see that other side of just what's here. And just becoming aware of God and then learning how people come to God. I think, through the Bible, I think there's so much to learn, and I'm not looking to learn a whole bunch of stuff. I feel like a lot of it is from the heart, and I believe that there's plenty in the gospel to show you that there's a lot inside us that we have to learn, and I have a lot of Christian friends that I get to talk to, and I just really enjoy discussing life and the presence that is here. And if you're willing to go deep and if you're willing to really listen and to really look around, there's a strong presence and a strong energy that can help and guide and save and protect and love, and it's there. And so it's like it's such a fascinating thing for me. I mean, I'm a science person. I love science, and I love how many people bring the gospel and science together, and just life and the stars and the planets, the earth and the animals and the trees and the just everything, just seeing how God's presence is in so many things of our lives, and how much we have to learn about ourselves and how much we have to learn about our brother and sister. Like having that relationship is, you have that relationship with God, with ourselves, and then you have that relationship with your brother or sister along with God. It's just such a beautiful thing um that's kind of really resonated with my heart and soul. And so it's something that I really want to learn more about, want to experience more, want to, like, talk more about. But I just feel like I would love to be able to help the next generation with spiritual guidance and the love that is there, the love that they can tap into, that's in their hearts and in their minds and in their souls. That was, it's a part of them. It's who we're created to be, and through life experiences and through relationships with friends and family and the highs and the highs and lows of life, the ups and downs, the yins, the yangs, the paradoxes of life, what this world has for us and what we have for this world. And I just feel like with racing and stuff, I've learned so much about racing, and now that I've gone on a path to find a deeper meaning to life, it'd be awesome to be able to connect those two together and try to learn a little bit more about how I can bring faith and love to the next generation. My idea is going to try to do something through riding, and if it works, great, and if not, it's I'll learn something. It's like I'm going to learn something no matter what. So I'm up for the challenge.
Well, you already do so much, I feel like, for the community in us talking and amongst other friends that we share. But you go to hospitals when people are injured from an accident, correct?
Yeah, and that's, I guess it's,
That's you spreading
reciprocating.
your little bit there, Doug.
Yeah, yeah, like, when I was in the hospital, I got a few phone calls from guys that were, in the industry that were injured prior to me and just a little bit of support, and so, yeah, having that little bit of support is I think it's really crucial, especially in the beginning parts of your your recovery and your, adaptation to a life that is very challenging, um, but if you meet the challenges, I feel like you can live a very, very, successful life and learn a lot, like, I asked for patience, I knew that. I had kids, you have kids, and it's like patience is like patience is a virtue, right? So patience was like something that I asked for, and you sit in a chair for 18 years, and let me tell you, you're going to learn patience.
Mm,
Yeah.
So, so there's a lot to learn and a lot of life to live, and I want to be able to share that with my people who are, going to go through the same struggle that I've been through, and if I can help them in some sort of way, and a lot of it is just being there, just being there and answering some questions, and just trying to get them on the right path, and or you're going to have to go into some darkness and solve some issues that maybe you were avoiding, and there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel if you're willing to look, so that's kind of what I want people to know, that like, you're in a bad place, but what can you learn from this bad place? What is it that you can do? Like, being grateful, I think that's the very, very strong, um, I don't know what to say. Belief, or a strong
Mm,
way to start a day, is to be grateful for what you have, and
best
not.
medicine.
yeah,
It really
Yeah.
is.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm learning, and I loved the other day talking to you too. It's like, I love just seeing other people that are similar to, kind of just growing the community, as far as of, I don't know, I say love all the time. I feel like that's the biggest thing, like, I feel like love is what attracts everything and brings people to what they want to do and their passions, and so talking to you too, and just seeing what you're looking to do in the community, and with this stuff, it's globally, but it starts with the community, I feel like, and seeing what you two are doing, it's like I really want to jump on board and learn more about you guys and what you're looking to do, and I think that the reciprocation, with what you're doing, and maybe with some of the ideas that I'm doing, that we can, help the younger generation to, I hate to say the cliche of love yourself, because I think it's a bit deeper than that, but um, to you know to be all right, like, the world's a messy place, but you don't have to necessarily be so much a part of that mess. You don't have to focus on that. There's so much more to love in life, and get in that heart and find out what you're passionate about, and maybe take some risks. You may fail, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
So I feel like we do get comfortable, and I feel like maybe I've been getting comfortable, and it's like it's time for me to kind of, move forward and try to break out and share what I've learned about my life with whoever wants to listen, whoever I could help.
I love that. How do you think your life changed the most, aside from the physical aspect? Like, yeah, you were go, 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 need for speed kind of guy, always on the track, but I feel like you appreciate things a lot more.
That's what I was going to say. The appreciation and being grateful. That is the biggest thing I've learned with that, is I feel like not being burdened by the past and not being anxious about the future. I feel like being more in the present time, and taking more care of that. That is more my main focus than, what's going to happen a year from now, or what's going to happen a week from now. And I mean, it's not that I don't plan. It's not that I don't stress. It's not that but I do take the time to relieve that in whatever time that I can, to say, hey, like whether it's something that's a struggle that's coming up, it's like, well, hey, right now I'm not struggling. Or if it's something that I'm carrying from the past, it's like you don't have to carry that. You can move on from that. Every day is a new day, and just little micro steps. It's the little micro changes. Maybe you can't make the big change right now. Maybe you can't quit that thing that's holding you down or break the chains that are holding you down, but just a little step every day can make a huge difference, a year from now or 5 years from now or whatever it is. And patience, give grace to yourself. You fall down, you get back up, and just as long as you keep getting back up, that's really what you got to do is just keep getting back up, learn from whatever mistake or whatever dark place you're in, and just keep moving forward. And that light, keeping that light and focus in your awareness, and making little steps a daily thing is huge to the overall picture, I feel.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
one more thing, I like back to you helping at the hospitals and going when people who are injured and on their bikes and things like that and helping with their families. You also do a lot of work with people who are not able to ride anymore, right? You have adaptive bikes and you work with different foundations because I think that's really cool. You're giving back in so many ways, Doug. I don't know if you fully
Grass.
understand what you do.
I don't. Just things sort of happen. And there's a little thing on my counter that says, let go of the pen. God's writing the story or something, something like that. It's just very subtle, but it's like letting go sometimes, like not trying to control your future so much, like you control the present to control the future in a way, but it's like I want to help people. I love helping people, and you attract, I guess, if that's what you want, like you have this energy and it just sort of attracts things. And, there's a friend that grew up in the same town as me in Shelton, and another friend that's, just been a racer for many years. And they're like, hey, let's start a foundation to help injured riders. And I was like, sure, that sounds good to me. Let's do it. So we've been doing a fundraiser for that for maybe 5 years. I'm not sure, maybe 5 years with that. And I really wanted to start a nonprofit that got riders back onto motorcycles again, got dirt bikes on, and built a bunch of motorcycles and had a vehicle that I could go and travel around the country and get people with disabilities a chance to get back on a bike again. And there's an injured rider and a good friend of his in Colorado that started Moto Demption, which is pretty much what I wanted to do 15 years ago that I just wasn't ready to do. And so just jumping on board with their program has been great. I know I'm going to say the full circle thing because when you see someone ride a bike for the first time since their injury, it's like there's nothing, there's like the emotions. It's crazy. And this year, just going out to California in December, there was a guy who had gotten paralyzed riding a motorcycle when his wife was pregnant with their son. And so, his son, I think he's maybe 14 now, and he's been riding a dirt bike for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 years, the kid. So this December was the first time they got to ride together. And it was just,
Wow.
Oh, wow.
yeah. So,
Priceless.
yeah, being a part of that, it's it's pretty awesome. So,
Yeah. You do more good than you realize, Doug.
Yeah.
It's quite
well,
amazing.
yeah, gotta, just, there's ups and downs in life, and maybe if I didn't have the struggles I had, I wouldn't appreciate the things that I get to experience and appreciate now, just by being present and helping helping other people get through their struggles. So,
Yeah. It's incredible.
and I mean, it's so funny, like, as we're talking and thinking about stuff is there's so many things in the gospel that you can relate to this, all the struggles that that they had in the past and all the obstacles they had. Just being able to get beyond that and to find love and then share it and see the love in your neighbor and your friend and be able to grow from there, like just growing a community from that. And so I don't know where I'm going with things, but I feel like I have a direction, and I think it's a direction that, is, uh is meant for me, and I'm gonna head that way, and we'll see what happens.
I love that. Just spread good,
Mhm.
that was our
Amen.
point of this. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, really, there's so much to be grateful for, you know?
Absolutely.
You can always look at the bad in life, but when you focus on the good, that is really magical, and it's something money can never buy, you know? Money can never buy you happiness, it has to come within,
Yes.
and it's just you're an incredible, inspiring story for everyone to hear. Just the overcoming multiple, not just one, multiple challenges throughout life, and your mindset, your attitude, your way of life, continuing to spread good wherever you are. It's just admirable. Very, very admirable. And we're just very lucky to have you as a guest. I mean, what a
And a
special.
friend.
Yeah.
Yes, and, as I'm learning, learning about life and awareness and stuff, it's like, I if I can, I would just like to kinda give all the glory to God because I think, like, that's where all of this, the community and helping others, I think that that's where that comes from. I don't want it to come, like, really so much from me. I want it to come from us, It's us that kinda make the world or the community a better place. It starts with the individual, but, I think it's the love for the individual and the love for the neighbor and the relationship between what the what the overall power of that is,
It's the
the
ripple
energy.
effect.
Yeah, the energy and like, we couldn't do this without, without the overall love of the creator, if that's the way of saying it.
Yeah. Well,
So,
well, I mean, I could talk to you forever, Doug.
I know.
Jeez. You need to be a motivational speaker. You need to write your own book. You need to do things. I mean, you're just a
easy,
powerhouse.
easy does it,
I
easy
know.
does
We'll be
it.
over at 2 to start writing that book.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. I know. The year of the horse.
The year of the
I'm
Yes.
horse,
getting on the
baby.
horse. I'm getting on the horse.
Yeah. I mean, you're just incredible. So, I mean, closing out today, we always kind of leave ourselves with a quote to kind of get us through the week. But since this is our season finale, we wanted, Doug, what we wanted to hear from you. What is the most inspiring quote that you live by day to day that will leave us and our listeners, until season 3?
I'm gonna say I have 4 words, and I used to use it for it has 2 meanings, and I often use the words, "This too shall pass." And I used to use that when I was in struggle and in dark places and, whether it was pain or, um, misunderstanding. And I've learned that it's also a huge benefit for the beautiful times that we get to experience. It could be a dinner with your kids where everybody just kind of like, it's just like, wow, it's such a beautiful moment, and it's like, this too shall pass. So enjoy it. And this
Yeah.
too shall pass. Don't dwell on it. You don't have to suffer, like this is suffering now that will bring goodness in another time. So I think I use this too shall pass quite often. So that will be my quote.
I love that.
I'm not crying.
I
You're
know.
crying,
No
okay?
kidding.
Holy moly, I never thought about it
Wow.
like that, and that's powerful.
Yeah. Uh,
Thank you so much, Doug.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
What a wonderful way to
I
end
look
this season.
Yeah, I look forward to working with you guys in the future, whatever, because I do feel like we have the same goals as to what we could do while we're here on this planet. And I'm sure that our paths will cross more times in the future.
So thankful.
Yeah.
So thankful for you. Your beautiful soul.
Oh, I'm thankful for you too. I appreciate it.
Mm. Well, thanks, listeners, for a successful season 2. We
Yes.
hope to be back very soon for season 3. Wishing you all the best. And as always, keep it good.